All right, thank you, Tricia. For the first item in the president's report, I'd like to address academic freedom. This is clearly a challenging time in higher education across the country, and I've spoken with a number of faculty who are concerned about what the future may hold. I am pleased to say that I can provide some words of reassurance. I have no indication that there will be any changes to the ability of faculty and students to engage in the research and teaching at the heart of LSU's academic mission at this time. Senate leadership remains steadfast in our support of academic freedom, and I believe that our administration shares our commitment. If at any time you feel that your ability to engage in scholarship has been infringed upon, please let us know and we will pursue all available options, including a possible referral to our Faculty Adjudication Committee to investigate the situation and seek redress if appropriate. Our ability to advocate for faculty is strengthened when a case is clearly covered by the principles of academic freedom, the parameters of which are sometimes misunderstood. One of the foundational documents defining academic freedom is the American Association of University Professors, AAUP, 1940 Statement of Principles on Academic Freedom and Tenure. A useful fact on academic freedom on the AAUP website summarizes the main elements as follows. Teaching, freedom to discuss all relevant matters in the classroom. Research, freedom to explore all avenues of scholarship, research, and creative expression, and to publish the results of such work. Intramural speech, freedom from institutional censorship or discipline when addressing matters of institutional policy or action. And extramural speech, freedom from institutional censorship or discipline when speaking or writing as citizens. The AAUP also highlights some limitations on academic freedom. The website states that when speaking on public matters, quote, faculty members should strive to be accurate, should exercise appropriate restraint, should show appropriate respect for the opinions of others, and should make every effort to indicate that they are not speaking for the institution. Additionally, the 1940 statement cautions that while faculty are free to discuss their subject in the classroom, they, quote, should be careful not to introduce into their teaching controversial matter which has no relation to the subject. The primary document addressing academic freedom at LSU A&M is Policy Statement 15, Academic Freedom, Free Speech, and Tenure. The Policy Committee has been in discussions with Academic Affairs about revising this PS to incorporate the recommendations from Senate Resolution 2401, passed in April of this year, and there may be opportunities for other updates during the revision process. I am optimistic these changes will be finalized sometime in the spring semester. Item 2, Administrative Process Improvement Committee. The Administrative Process Improvement Committee, APIC, is up and running for this year. The committee brings together representatives from the faculty, staff, and administration, including the Office of Academic Affairs, to provide a forum for the identification of opportunities for improvements in operational and administrative processes on campus. If you believe your concerns can be addressed by the committee, please consult the APIC website, which has more details about the committee's charge and a link to an online submission form. Matters that are academic in nature should continue to be brought to the attention of the Office of Academic Affairs and the Faculty Senate Executive Committee. Item 3, Parking and Transportation Services. The Faculty Senate Executive Committee recently met with representatives from the Office of Parking and Transportation Services to hear updates on the plans for parking during construction of the new library and the longer-term campus mobility plan. Please continue to monitor email communications from this unit as they will include important updates. We have also invited the office to make a presentation at a future Faculty Senate meeting. Item 4, Faculty Colloquium. The Office of Academic Affairs and the Learning and Teaching Collaborative will be hosting a faculty colloquium on January 10th, 2025 from 8:30 a.m. to 1 p.m. with sponsorship by Campus Federal Credit Union. The keynote speaker, Dr. Bonnie Stachowiak, is the Dean of Teaching and Learning and Professor of Business and Management at Vanguard University of Southern California, and also the host of Teaching in the Higher Ed podcast. She will lead the session entitled Go Somewhere, Reimagining Technology and Education for a Better Tomorrow. More information, including the event agenda and a registration link, can be found on the colloquium's website. And the final item, Louisiana Lights volunteer opportunities. The Burden Museum and Gardens is seeking volunteers for their inaugural year of Louisiana Lights, which begins Friday, November 29th, and continues through the end of December. Information about the event can be found at the Louisiana Lights website, and volunteers can create an account at the LSU Ag Center Botanic Garden volunteer application form. Once an account has been created, you can see available volunteer opportunities by going to the VICNIC website. And those are all linked in the written report if you're interested in pursuing that. One note before we get to Q&A. Some of you may have noticed that there was change to the agenda between distribution last week and when it was posted yesterday. Unfortunately, Param Singh is very much under the weather and unable to join us today. So the presentation by Param and Wenqi Fan from LSU Online on Moodle and future plans for Moodle has been delayed to the January meeting. But we wish Param good health and hope that he is fully recovered soon. And we will hold that material over till January. With that, I would invite any questions that you may have on the president's report. All right. Well, thank you very much. We will now turn our attention to a series of presentations, all under the umbrella of the Student Achievement Committee. And I will turn the meeting over to Inessa Bazayev, Chair of the Student Achievement Committee, who will make a brief introduction about the committee and the presentations. Inessa, thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Can you hear me? I'm not sure. Yeah. So very briefly, in the fall of 2023, so actually almost exactly at this time last year, I formed, as Faculty Senate President at the time, a joint committee on student achievement to increase communication and collaboration among the faculty, enrollment management, data analytics, and student affairs. This committee consists of Jackie Bach, myself as the chair, or when I step down, whoever is representative from executive committee will chair it. The Jackie Bach, Vice Provost of Academic Affairs, Danny Barrow, Vice President for Enrollment Management and Student Success, Keena Arbuthnot, Vice President and Chief Data Officer, and Brandon Common, Vice President of Student Affairs. We've met several times since last year, and I think we've had a really good collaboration. I myself have learned a lot after my communications with you guys, especially working with the College of Science, specifically math department, on how to better serve our incoming students and place them in right math classes. So it's been very educational for me, and some of the things that we've been discussing is to formalize who we are and what we do. So this committee, we wrote up a charge. This was back in November 7th last year, which is to identify opportunities for collaboration based on strengths of each membership unit, and to share and address issues with campus community and educate how to better contribute to student achievement. And I just mentioned the membership. And then we agreed to meet twice per semester and have a yearly presentation at the Faculty Senate. So here we are at our inaugural presentation. And then we will also have a yearly presentation probably scheduled at the end of this academic year with President Tate, and to just take stock of what we've done and how we can further improve the process. We thought that this we should share what we've been doing, and especially in each, I have been just watching and be liaising among these units. So I've asked Danny, Keena, and Brandon to make presentations, and we're gonna start off with Danny Barrow, who's gonna give us enrollment management and student success update and the relentless pursuit of excellence. Danny.
And as Danny is getting settled, we are going to have each presenter present, and then following each presentation, we will open the floor to questions. So a presentation, questions, and then progress to the next presentation. So if you do have questions, you will have an opportunity to ask the presenter.
Good afternoon, everybody. Let me just make sure you can all hear me. It's a privilege and an honor to stand before the Faculty Senate. I appreciate the opportunity to serve. Today, I thought about the title of this update, and I think excellence is often talked about in higher education circles, but it's often not clearly defined. And in my mind, and what I've said to our team and across the campus, is excellence is taking a look at best practices in recruitment and retention, applying that in phases that are able to be assessed and then scaled. If you are at a flagship institution in our country and you are not scaling interventions. I have said to my team, that's not what we do at the flagship. And so what we're going to be able to provide you over the next 8 minutes is a snapshot of where we are, but more importantly, I would love to have a conversation with you about the state of enrollment at the institution. I'll focus specifically on undergraduate students today. And what you'll see in our charts is that our growth has largely been over the last decade on non-resident students, Pell students, and first-generation students entering our academy. You will also see over the last decade that growth that we have become accustomed to of 7 consecutive record-breaking years at this institution was not always the case for us at LSU. I started my journey here with you all in August of 2017. And I definitely do remember quite often, and I share this with my team often, what it felt like entering our campus community, where there was much needed hope and there was an opportunity that I just could not resist. I was just sharing with Dan not too long ago that I moved here from Buffalo with a 7-month-old, bought a house in Buffalo 7 months before I started here, and I was proud to serve an AAU institution in my home state of New York. However, the opportunity to be here at LSU that year and to see this growth, I never have doubted that decision, particularly over the last 3 years under President Tate's leadership, which really has helped us be more laser focused on our scholarship first agenda, which has really said, not only can we recruit the best and brightest, we need to ensure that every student that we admit to this institution graduates from LSU. And that is the essence of the relentless pursuit. Right now, we do not graduate every student that we admit and enrolls at this institution. And that is what I focus on every single day. You can see the significant gains of our undergraduate student body. And what I argue is that we are in the position at this institution to meet our nation's moment in higher education. What you will also see is that the academically accomplished classes that have entered LSU is at an all-time high today. I credit the faculty. I credit the fact that we have world-class professors, instructors at every level at this institution engaging in the most consequential research that has driven us to be able to attract the best and brightest from our home state of Louisiana and across our nation. What you will see is that today, looking at average credits earned, it's the highest credits earned over the last decade. You'll see that the number of students whose GPA by the end of their spring semester of their first year, fewer students are below 2.5. And you'll see that their cumulative GPAs, with the exception of the COVID years, have continued to increase when they've been here as a first-year student. It's just as important that as we bring in the best, we retain those students at the institution. And what you see today before you is we have now the highest retention rates in LSU history. Once again, outside the COVID year where there was pandemic academic policies, you will see that the second year Pell rates, something that I believe is critically important, not just because of my personal journey as one of those students, but also as we anchor this institution into AAU membership. How do we close our equity gaps, particularly for our most vulnerable students coming from the lowest socioeconomic statuses of our state and country, to ensure that we are that engine of social mobility and a talent incubator for our state and region. You will also see that the third year retention rates are at the highest they've ever been. And you will also see that the students who are now being admitted into their senior college by the time they enter their junior year is the highest. Once again, I go back to the title of this presentation, The Relentless Pursuit of Excellence. Obviously, those numbers, to me, are unsatisfactory. We need to continue to improve, but we also, as a community, need to celebrate, because this is an embodiment of your work in the classroom and our work with this committee, starting from Dr. Bach to Dr. Commons to Dr. Arbuthnot, and the countless teams that work outside the classroom to ensure our students are prepared for inside the classroom. That continuous improvement component is just who I am. It's never going to change. It is hard for our teams because there are times that we want to take the foot off the gas pedal. I would say that that is deadly for any institution in this time period. You can see that when our division started to focus on student success, particularly first to second year and getting students into their senior college prepared and on time, you can see that some of the areas that we have identified back in 2021 were just out of best practice. Ratios of advisors to students completely nowhere near the standard of 250. Today, it's still not at 250. But what we do know through Titan's Partners research is that as you can reduce the caseloads of academic advisors so that they can build the relationships necessary for students to ensure that they're successful inside your classrooms and your programs, that you could reduce or can increase the retention rates for those caseloads by a percentage point for every 100 that you reduce. You will also notice that our approach to academic advisement, particularly as students entered LSU from a wide range of secondary institutions across our state and country, we have evolved. Where we are today is that we use population health. We have partnered with Dr. Arbuthnot's team in ensuring that we can understand our students even before they are in your classrooms. When starting July of 2023, we were able to get data that helped form Welcome Week small groups. For the last 5 years, we have partnered with the Student Affairs under Dr. Commons' leadership in making sure that we have standardized the onboarding experience for all incoming first-year students. And what we're looking to do here is to build a relationship with students where we can reduce the bureaucracy that institutions like us can sometimes feel like, particularly for those populations of students who are first in their family to go to college, and have somebody that they can feel has their back and support. You can see one of the key pieces that we have been able to really move the needle on pretty substantially is the number of changes a student makes in terms of their major since we've been intentional about those relationships, looking at the preparation. From 35% of students changing their major 3 or more times to now only 4% of our incoming cohorts. And in the second to last row, what you'll see is that from 2018 to 2021, roughly 47% of Pell students were not seen by an academic advisor. They were able to go through their course scheduling without having a one-on-one appointment with their advisor or even a group session. Today, that is at 4% as we stand here with all of you. The goal is 0. This is what we are having to position our institution to think about. A lot of the previous slides are talking about averages. There is a essence, or there is a theory out there in the sense of, do you have to educate on the average student, or should be you thinking about the students that are in the future and being able to think about our most vulnerable students to ensure that we are uplifting them? Because the reality is just in our home state, and this is true for every state that we are next to, The decline in headcount in our country is significant. Preparation by the nation's report card, indicated by NAEP scores. We have wiped away every gain we've had since the 1970s to where we are now in 4th grade and 8th grade math and literacy. So the things that we need to consider as a community, particularly as an institution that I believe has the heart and soul to be an institution of consequence in our country, in our nation, and most importantly in our state, we need to consider some of these things that you see on the board right now as we position and continue to position LSU for excellence. These are some of those thoughts that I wanted to make sure that I presented. The clock didn't really work. Questions, comments, feedback? Yes.
Sorry, just one moment. If I might ask, just please wait for the microphone. It just helps with the recording for the YouTube video, but thank you. And if I could ask all individuals asking questions, please identify yourself before asking the question as well. Thank you.
My name is May from the Department of Administration. Thanks for sharing this inspiring information on enrollment management for undergrad students. I was wondering if you have any information or advice to share about the online enrollment. So our program, we started an online MBA program 2 years ago, and now we see the enrollment of online students have expanded very fast. So the problem or challenge we're facing is we see as the student body enrollments are increasing, the students' academic preparedness seems to see a wide range. Some students seem to be unprepared or way below average, but they were admitted into the program. And if we keep the current standard of everything academic standard, we might see a number of students they have to withdraw. So the challenge is our department chair tried to decline some admission. However, we face the pushback from LSU a lot. So do you have any insights or any direction to guide us how the department should handle enrollment?
Sure. I am not going to speak directly on online students and their education. I believe the best person for the faculty to talk to is Vice President Cappy Mumphrey. She is an expert in the field, and she has the team that is going to help faculty and the students to ensure that we can address those concerns. The topic of academic preparedness is one that I think the community, regardless of modality, is something that we need to continue to talk about. And that's one of the reasons why, one of the things that we are looking to do in our strategic direction in the bottom right-hand corner here is we know that for our brick and mortar students, we know that we need to begin getting those students on campus sooner than the fall semester. We have had substantial success with our Pre-Scholars Academy. Over the last 6 years, we've had retention rates in those for those students who have started in the summer 10 points higher than the typical student that was directly admitted into the fall semester. That was very similar. And it allows students to get back on track. And then the second biggest piece is being able to really continue to implement some of what we got to see in this very room of an AI symposium that Dr. Arbuthnot led this past academic year, where we were able to really see a cross-section of what our faculty are coming to create an event into addressing some of those preparedness issues that we are all seeing. And what we know is that COVID exacerbated some of those underlying issues that were happening even prior to COVID. And so one of those things that institutions of our stature, size, mission, public R1 research institutions across our country are grappling with academic unpreparedness, particularly in math.
So, hi, I'm Scott Baldridge. I'm in math. Thank you for the nice presentation.
And perfect transition.
Yeah. So we know that there's like an oncoming cliff of enrollment as the student numbers, just the number of students. Yeah, yes, that slide. That's across the United States.
This slide is for Louisiana.
This one's for Louisiana, but it's also happening.
Every state but North Dakota, Florida. The only state that has some level of population that we would is Florida, that would not see declines over the next decade.
So my question is how are you planning for this, and what are some of your strategies? Thank you.
Yeah. Number one is being able to reach the best students earlier than we have historically. So as I shared with you, I got started here at LSU in 2017, and from about 2017 to about last year, we started to recruit students heavily by the end of their junior year in high school. We know that if we are going to attract the best and brightest, we need to start engaging with the students, and just as importantly, their family, as early as sophomore year. In some cases, particularly for our home state students, to ensure that we are keeping the talent in our state, we even need to get sooner than that. So probably since 2022, we have engaged in a phenomenal project where Dr. Arbuthnot, our team in enrollment management, has been starting to partner with the East Baton Rouge public school system, where we were looking at schools that, when we look at the success that we've had over the last 7 years, we had schools in our own backyard where they graduated 200 young people and 0 students enrolled at the flagship. 0. I was the director of admissions at that point. I said to folks here, that's unacceptable. Today, we have been able to increase the students from those 5, and it was just 5 high schools that we have identified right now: Scotlandville, McKinley, Bel Air, Struma, Woodlawn. We were able to increase them where we now have 130 students from those 5 high schools. So part of this challenge that we have is that we have to go further in the pipeline in K-12 to inspire, expose highly motivated and talented students to see us as an authentic destination. It also means that we need to recruit students that we have historically relied on earlier. We need to, I believe online is a key component, but it can't be the only component to addressing those headcount. And then the 4th major component is, if we are going to be reliant on students for the talent and the workforce needs of our state, but also for some of those fiscal needs we have as an institution, we must commit to this institution and to ourselves, and within every area of our spaces that we impact, that we must retain more students year over year. And so that is part of what you're seeing us transition to. You know, when I got here in 2017, the big topic of conversation about enrollment management was the campus tour and whether you were going into a high school visit. That was probably 1990s, maybe the early 2000s. Where we are right now is thinking about strategic enrollment management and thinking about the full life cycle of a student. Now, we're not necessarily fully engaged in the junior and senior year when they're in their senior colleges. But what we are doing is ensuring that what we are telling students on the front end of recruitment, is it their experience when they're here on campus? No one is going to be able to stand in front of you or stand in front of families and say, we are perfect. But we got to get better, and we got to continue to move that needle, and that's what we've been focused on.
Thank you. I believe we have time for 2 more questions. So Dr. Jacquet.
Thanks.
Mhm.
I'm Kat Jacquet. I'm a rep with AAAS, and I'm also in the history department. So you mentioned that 4% of Pell students are now are not seen by an advisor, which is a huge improvement, and that's totally awesome. So I'm wondering how we make that happen for all students, because my understanding is there's a major problem with the advising system and student access to advisors. Over in HSS, Humanities and Social Sciences, I've heard over and over and over from students that it's nearly impossible for them to get an appointment with an advisor. From what I've been told, when new HSS appointment slots open up, which I think happens like once a week, those fill up within less than an hour. And it's even to the point, like the director of undergrad studies over in history, she's getting students from the business school writing to her and asking her to help advise them because they're so lost, and she obviously can't do that. So is there a plan to hire like several dozen more advisors? Because this seems like critical.
I share your concern. The person that I have not mentioned yet, and I failed to mention, is Becca Thompson. The reason why you see the numbers from 47 to 4 is Becca Thompson. And the reality is that Becca came from athletics. She was an academic advisor for our baseball team 17 years ago, was credited by Paul Maneri as one of the key components in winning that championship during his tenure here, because she ran through brick walls for students in order to do that. What we have been doing under Becca's leadership, who has been a key person on my team, is ensuring that our advising staff in University College has sharp accountability, cross-trained, and is able to have a caseload of students that they are accountable to by Becca and her leadership team. What you're experiencing in one of our senior colleges, Dr. Blanchard, the Dean of HSS, is absolutely one of the most committed folks that I know on student success. The challenge, what we are seeing, and what you are seeing, let me go back to this slide, is that we are getting better at getting more students to progress into the senior colleges at a faster rate with more students. And so part of what's happening is that our student services staff in critical time periods, right, when windows are open for classes to schedule, that's when they are getting over inundated by students, right? And so then how do we necessarily do that? Under Dr. Bach's leadership, we have, and we partnered with the Office of Academic Affairs in this, is that we started to create academic advising summits. The last one we had, I think, was 2018, right? Prior to Dr. Bach's leadership, and then we brought it back last year. We need to get better at doing that. And that's the continuous improvement that we need. We are more than happy to work with them as the senior colleges. I don't think it's exclusively HSS either. But it's also at times even in University College. So that's where I want to make sure that I'm transparent with you. We have found there are days and weeks where we are like, oh my God, we have to then get some of our academic coaches to be able to be cross-trained and work with incoming students or first-year students to ensure that they are meeting somebody and not just feeling like they're lost. Foundationally, if you are not a faculty member conducting research or instruction on this campus, I believe your main job on this campus is to help students to be the best version of themselves in the classroom. So how do we all work together is something that I know the administration and our leadership is committed to.
I'm supporting about the from coastal environment. So I have a question that have we done any kind of large scale survey to determine what are the factors that are attracting students to LSU and what are the factors that are turning them away from LSU?
Yeah. The last one that we've done in terms of a survey was back for the entering class of April of 2022. And it was April to August of that entering class. I know our Vice President of Marketing and Communications, Todd Woodward, His team is currently looking to focus not just on the incoming cohort, but also on our current student component. And then there is a group of administrators that have gotten together to re-engage with the NESI survey, which is something that we do every 3 years. And that's another survey that will be deployed and assessed starting this spring.
Well, thank you, Vice President Barrow. I appreciate the presentation. And also go Bills.
Yes.
And next, I'd like to invite Vice President Arbuthnot to come join us for a presentation on building a data-informed campus, an overview of the Office of Data and Strategic Analytics.
Good afternoon, everyone. How are you? Glad to be here and always really happy to work with the Faculty Senate over the last 5 years in administrative positions. I have worked very closely with all the presidents, and lastly, Inessa and now Dan, and it's been just my great pleasure to work with them and this team. So really excited today to talk a little bit about the Office of Data and Strategic Analytics, which was established in June 2023. And I want to go a little bit through that, and at the end, I'll talk about a little bit about how we've engaged with faculty. Vice President Barrow has already talked about that, but I'd like to finish on that note. So we'll start with what were the goals and objectives of building out this Office of Data and Strategic Analytics. So the vision behind that was based on the current status of other higher education universities. There were several universities that said that we have to begin to start to harness data to make better informed decisions, particularly at the administrative level. So President Tate asked me to step in and work in this capacity. And there were 3 major goals and objectives. And as you see there, which was develop a smart university that is responsive to administrative decision-making needs. What he found in his first couple of years here at LSU, when he was asking for data, there were always kind of delays, or the data was in a way that was very hard to understand and interpret. So number 1 is to make it more responsive to the needs of the administration. Modernize our university's data ecosystem. At the time, there were questions about, how modern our ecosystem was. We were just kind of looking into data warehouses at that time, really thinking about how we would pull all our data in together and looking at some of our peers and benchmarking and figure out what they were doing. University of Washington, Carnegie Mellon, Vanderbilt, they were all kind of ahead of this curve in terms of how do we begin to harness data. And the last is support the vision and mission of LSU. So I'll start with this story in June 2023 of taking over and rethinking and reimagining what this looks like. We initially started with institutional research, which has been here and is at every university with 9 staff members. Upon building out this unit, added an additional 4 staff members, 2 of which have PhDs. Others have masters in data analytics. They've been a wonderful a team to work with. Next is to establish a data governance function for LSU A&M. What we found was there was much limited governance, and as we started moving into the new age of AI, we needed to have a governance structure put around that. So one of the charges of my team, it was to put together an established data governance committee, as well as figure out how to catalog our data and put it in a space and place where people could better understand it, understand what definitions were, and really kind of thinking through that process. And lastly, integrating with Snowflake, which is now our data warehouse. And we can have, you all probably should invite ITS here to talk a little bit more about our Snowflake instance. So here is start about some of the projects that have been done. So as of June 2023, that following couple months was really kind of trailing up, building it out. And in September 2023, we put together the TDX instance where we started doing service requests in a different way. Prior to my appointment, they were being done via email, going back and forth, and we built out a service request. We thought about all the different types of services that people would want, particularly from this more expanded team. So just moving away from just data requests, we added decision support, we added analysis and supports, consultations, data analysis, training we'll talk about, and a lot of the external reporting that we have to do behind the scenes for all kinds of entities, lots of entities. So the first, in our first year, we did over 21 major analyses and reports provided to leadership team to help leverage data to better understand and support their administrative functions. Danny Barrow has several of those, work with Brandon Commons' team, work with the provost office, of course, the president's office and others to help them leverage data and analyze and utilize that data in ways to help inform decision-making. That has been probably the most exciting part of this job, is to be given a problem or a question, and then for us to go out and find out if there's data to support or help us better inform, and then moving through that process and then reporting. The team really kind of delved into, okay, so now that we pull data, or we have all this data, how do we make sure that people understand it and can get to it very easily? And we already had a set of data dashboards and a kind of archaic website. So we started to try to think about and do some analytics in terms of what are people typically looking for? What are they interested in? And really kind of building out our website around that. So in the next month or so, you'll see kind of a newly refreshed, totally redone website that really responds to the needs of the community. We've got lots of data dashboards out there now, but after a year of kind of working with this, working with our faculty, working with our staff and administrators, looking at the analytics behind the open rates, we're really pushing forward those data dashboards and kind of rethinking them in a way that can be much more useful to our faculty, staff, and students and other stakeholder groups. In addition to that, we started looking for other external data sources that would potentially help us better understand questions that are burning questions. One of the questions is, where do our students go after they leave? So through a partnership with the Board of Regents about 2 years ago, we had an instance of what's called Lightcast, which takes uses AI to kind of scrub the internet and find out where some of our faculty and staff work. So we had these great data sets. All the system had these great data sets, but there were hordes and hordes of data. So my team came together and built out what we call the workforce dashboards, and they built that from that instance. And that was shared with the administrative teams, and we were able to drill down into colleges as well as drill down into different areas or degrees, and to figure out where are most of our students going, where they're working, et cetera. From that, and from being able to present that data and show everyone how useful it was, we didn't only present it to the campus leadership, but also the system leadership. We've purchased a Lightcast instance, which is much more robust and comprehensive, and we're going to have that as of this Friday. Some of the team is going to start training on that. It's going to give us really clear data about where our students go after graduation, which could be incredibly helpful, not only at the administration level, but at the department level as well, to say, this is where our students have gone over the last 20 plus years. And I think to date, there are no real nationally known, really good data sets that tell us that type of information. And this will be one of the first. We also built internal AAU dashboards. So when the president announced that we were going to be going after AAU, the team came together and used some internal analytics. We have a platform called Academic Analytics through the Office of Academic Affairs, dropped some of that data down and really started looking at how do we compare both at the college level and at the department level to other AAU institutions, which is very telling. And what was found out was we have some departments that are trending very well, very, very well, and there are some that have challenges that probably need more support. In addition, my team responds to over 50 survey collections a year, which is a lot behind the scenes. They ask for a lot, but we want to engage with all of those. Some that you may be aware of is the Regents, of course, U.S. News and World Reports, iPads, CDS, et cetera. But there are scores of them that this team responds to. In addition, I want to talk a little bit about the data governance outcomes, because over the last year, we both chartered the data governance committee. We set up the executive steering committee, which is modeled after kind of the approach that other kind of leading institutions are using for data governance. We put together the committee that represents administrators in several different areas to make sure that we're paying attention to how data flows, data stewards, and making sure everyone is informed. And we've got data roles. There's a lot of things that are going to roll out, and I'll encourage you all to go to lsu.edu/data for a lot of this information. But I think the data governance function is one that you will be very interested in learning more about. Just to tell you a little bit about data governance and how it's kind of transformed over the year. And I will say that my team went to a national conference and people were oohing, and they were presenting on the data governance function, and other schools were coming up asking, could they utilize kind of the same process that we use? And I think it's been very successful. July, the office was open. November, we established the data governance committee. December, we acquired what's called Data Cookbook, which helps support the data governance function. In January, we formed what's called the Data Management and Integrity Working Group. This is a group across many units that are working together. We ratified the Data Governance Charter, which you all can go to and look at on the website. We started integrating our data systems with the Data Cookbook function. And in October, we started the Security and Privacy Working Group. A couple folks in here are on that team as well. And then we started finalizing the API between Data Cookbook and Tableau. So there's going to be some things that you'll start seeing in dashboards. You'll start seeing icons where you can click on the Data Cookbook icon, and that will tell you more about each of the variables. Because what we were having is people were saying, well, how did you calculate this graduation rate? Well, graduation rate may mean something different to iPads or to another survey. So as you go through our internal dashboards, we will start to have a Data Cookbook icon that you can click on and shows you the definitions and different details about those data sources. Very excited about that. Lastly, I'm going to talk a little bit about training and development and how this relates to our faculty. This is one of the kind of exciting parts of my job. I think when I was charged with this, one of the issues was how do you build out a data culture across the campus? And for me, I thought of all the different stakeholder groups. We always talk about students, but I thought about faculty and staff, and how do we do that? Staff, I think a lot of our staff members, sometimes particularly mid-level staff members, are a little bit scared of data and kind of moving into it, particularly on the quantitative side. But in terms of our faculty, how do we leverage faculty expertise to help us make better data decisions? So in my mind, I said, well, if we want to move into the AI space, why should we go out and get a consultant to help us look at some of our data and our large data sets? We have a wealth of expertise on campus. So we began what's called the AI Faculty Fellows program, and I'm going to tell you about that a little bit. Dr. Mukapatier is part of that. We're very happy to have him. The other was, how do we help our staff kind of get integrated and build this data culture from the ground up? So we put out a call for what's called the Presidential Data Analytics Fellows, and that group was 39 individuals from every single college and every single administrative unit at the mid-level. And why the mid-level? Because those are some of the folks that are doing the work, both supporting supervisors and administration, as well as supervising those underneath them. We thought the mid-level was the place to go. This has been a huge success. Here's some examples of the Presidential Data Analytics Fellows. President Tate gave kind of a talk and a charge to them at first. It was very exciting. All of our deans came by and ate lunch with this team over the summer, as well as you can see, all of the members there. We have panels with administrators across campus, everybody talking about how do we use data in our day-to-day life. And over the rest of the year, they started in June, and over this year, they're working through a project with teams where at the end of the year, the staff, 39 staff members on campus, will be given a symposium, just like one of us would do, talking about how they leverage data to answer very important questions within their units and within the units across campus. This has really been a powerful tool to really push the data culture across campus. And last but certainly not least, the AI Faculty Fellows. Daniel came, and I invited him, and he came. I know he has pickups and everything, but he came and took his time to come. It was super exciting. Our AI Faculty Fellows came about when I first started, when we said, hey, we need some folks that want to work with us. We had over 20 plus faculty members apply. 9 were presented with the AI Faculty Fellows. And from there, it just skyrocketed. And what you see here is what I presented at the Faculty Fellows, is how this system kind of exploded. Source and idea by President Tate, myself being charged to do it, working with the CAO and the provost, as you see there. And then what you see around are staff, faculty, deans, and others that have been working with these fellows. In the orange are all of our fellows that are currently on their second year of their projects. Daniel was there. He saw a lot of the projects. I don't have the time to talk about the project. They were amazing. They talked about student success. They talked about mathematics and looking at algebra and gateway courses. We also looked at facilities and helping to think about infrastructure and quality of air, et cetera. But we started to build out this ecosystem, which was the point, is how do you kind of leverage this unit to be kind of working with not only just faculty, but staff in ways that can help inform decision-making. And here's a picture of the faculty fellows, as well as President Tate speaking in this room about the AI faculty fellows. And lastly, I want to show how you invest in the faculty and how you get a huge return on your investment. We invested in faculty fellows, and it was a I would say a modest stipend. Socratic may disagree. It was a modest stipend that everyone was asked were given to work over the year. They could use it on travel, they could use it for summer salary, et cetera. The team started to build and they came together. We had people from CHSS, from CHSE, art, music, and dramatic arts, from science, engineering, and they're working on teams together to solve problems and build out a problem. From that, the first one, which is huge, is myself and Dr. Mukapatier, along with other AI faculty fellows, we applied to the AI Alliance. And why is that important? And we were invited, and we have a press release coming out in a couple of days that says that we were officially invited. We are the only Louisiana entity part of this group, as well as all the other universities are AAU and universities that are a part of it at this point. So we're very excited to be part of the AI Alliance. It wouldn't have become we wouldn't have been able to realize it without the AI faculty fellows. They've been a critical part of that. 2 NSF proposals went out about a month ago, totaling $2.4 million. What a return on investment, right? So as I talked to the administration about it, what did you say? 1 week, okay. And then article submission, we had one of our graduate students also supported and is writing an article with one of our fellows. We've got a beginner's online AI course that was driven by one of our fellows. And then we've got partnerships now between faculty and staff to solve problems, which is what you saw in that ecosystem. So all in all, I just wanted to end on that, which is basically saying how the faculty, not only faculty and staff and administrators come together to solve problems. And it is a great pleasure of mine to be really kind of leading that department. Any questions? Sure. Did I go over 10 minutes?
Just a little bit.
Oh, okay. Apologies.
Thank you very much for this presentation. That is amazing. It's very inspiring. My very quick question for data, are you collecting quantitative data only or also qualitative data?
Which part are you
For
at?
the data.
For the data for the fellows or?
Yeah, the fellows and everything, because that was my question. Like, I know you're working a lot, but how do you collect your data and what kind of data?
So it depends on the project, right?
Okay.
We've got one fellow group, which actually Socratic is part of, looking at algebra, and it was a mixed methods. So they had a quantitative part, as well as they did interviews with students and sat with students and did one-on-one interviews. So I went to University of Illinois. I walked in as a 100% quant person. I walked out 80% quant, 20% qualitative. There is some, yes, there's a little bit of that in me. So I think sometimes we've used it in multiple ways. So it just depends on what the project is or the analysis. Most of it is very quantitative in nature, but there are times where you have to go do interviews or focus groups and things like that to get information. And we've leveraged that depending on the project.
Perfect.
Great
Thank
question.
you. And then for the AI, is there any plan for your institute, for this committee institution, to create a way to protect the information that we are giving through AI? Like, for example, if right now we are interacting with AI, let's say ChatGPT, or in the case of Spanish, because we have AI tools.
Mhm.
And so students are interacting with it. And how are we protecting that interaction, that knowledge, that
Are we protecting it?
yeah,
I'm
are
not
there
sure.
any plans for that? Because I remember last year, I was in last February, I was in a talk where in the UK, there is a huge concern about how do we protect the data we have about how students interact with AI. So that it's just not that Copilot, for example, right now, can use that interaction of our LSU students, but they actually have to notify LSU that they are working with information that they collect through their interaction with LSU. I know that Florida is working on that direction. I just wonder if any.
So we haven't started that, but I think that's part of the data governance function, particularly data that we're in charge of or
Yeah.
systems that we're over, really making sure that infrastructure pays attention to that and engages in terms of how people, I say, data is the new oil, people want that because it can be fuel, it's fuel to learn about human behavior and lots of other things. So yes, I think you're correct, but it's also in terms of my office, the data governance function, thank goodness that we started it a year and a half ago and we've matured quite a bit, is kind of that framework that we're going to throw over that. But there's a lot more that is coming down the pipeline. And I'm sure some of our engagement with the AI Alliance, which is lots of higher ed institutions, lots of industries, can help inform that as well. And that's what we're looking forward to, because now it's not just the 9 AI faculty fellows working with the team. Now we've got Meta, and I mean, we're working with industry, and there's forums and there's things that we engage in. So hopefully there's ways for us to leverage some of that expertise in those groups to help inform some of this as well.
Yeah. Well, thank you
Does that
very
help?
much. Yes. Yes.
Good, great questions. Anyone else? Any other questions? Sure.
Hi, I'm John Snow from the Department of Geology and Geophysics.
John.
And so I'm not exactly new to this field. My mother graduated with a degree in computer science in 1965, the inaugural class of computer scientists at Wash University in St. Louis.
Oh, really? That's where I'm from.
Okay.
And she was a woman in mathematics, science, and
That's
in the
exactly right.
60s?
That's
That's
I wanted
amazing.
to point that out.
Mhm.
And so, and we had these kinds of discussions around the dinner table about what data science is and what data is, because that was our kind of household. I learned the really important term when I was about 10 years old, and that was GIGO.
Garbage in, garbage out.
Garbage in, exactly, garbage
Teach
out.
that.
So, this came back to me recently during my first foray into academic analytics, because I drilled down into things that I exactly know about in academic analytics and found it rife with inaccuracies and errors. And so this is a problem in my department, that faculty are misclassified, their work isn't adequately, usually to their detriment and to the department's detriment. And so I wanted to just ask, what part of your team is devoted towards avoiding the GIGO problem when
it's brought to our attention? So I think you speak of broadly, academic analytics is
not just
what
for our
they use.
department, not just academic analytics, I mean broadly across the sources of your data. What portion of your team is devoted towards understanding the quality control in the data inputs, rather than just finding fancy ways of using the data? That's great. But if the data that are coming in are flawed, then they're not serving the university maybe as well as they should,
Of course,
in academic decision-making.
So I think, so number one, we have a very small team, and we definitely look at data quality issues, how it's being used by others, what the purpose is. So I come from a psychometric background. So what was the purpose of this particular survey, or what was the purpose of this instrument? And are we using it in a way that's aligned with that? I think in terms of data quality, we also don't want to throw the baby out with the bath water, right? People say this is inaccurate, but if we have, so for example, with the workforce information, they scrub LinkedIn, they scrub all of your online, and then they do some quality controls, and we kind of go through that process, and we work with, let's just say Lightcast company right now, we've worked with them about how they've pulled some of the AI. Is it 100% accurate? No, but we get information about 70% of our graduates over the last 20 plus years, right? So in essence, we have to say, you have to give the disclaimer, this is not everyone. Potentially things may have shifted or changed. We did as much as we could for quality control, but it's still information that we can use and leverage to look at to help inform our students as they begin to come into, say, I want to get a PhD in physics. Well, what have LSU students with a PhD in physics gone off to do? Well, it's not every single one of them. It's not 100% accurate, but these are some of the pathways. These are some of the places that they built. So I think it's basically looking at the source, wondering what you can glean from it and what information you can't, and also how you're using that information. So for me, it's about use. If I'm using it to explore and to help inform in ways, and also know that there's disclaimers about not necessarily, maybe not even just quality, just saying, like, if you pulled something off of LinkedIn and you you juxtapose it with our systems and they're basically correct, they're aligned, we should use that information. So I'm of the mindset of, I would rather have 70% of our students and be able to do something with it than wait to get the 100%. But to the point to say, we only got 70%. And they may not be 100% accurate. The person may have changed their job this year. I'm just giving you this as an example. May have changed their job this year. Maybe they're working for the government now, and that's not featured here. But however, still a lot of information I can share. So we have to really be careful about how we use it. And I think you're talking about academic analytics, which they give disclaimers about how you use it. And you and I can have a side conversation about that. I agree with there are some issues, but broadly speaking, if you're looking at it to utilize it on some benchmarking errors and you find many errors for your area, but however, another area is pretty accurate and correct, you don't want to throw it out. So you just have to think about how to do that. And I think my team tries to do that as much as possible when people address or present errors. We work with some of the systems. We've been working with academic analytics to clean some of that stuff up. We've been doing a lot of work on the back end, but then certain data sets or certain companies, we don't have the privilege of telling them, you need to go clean up your data. You need to do this. We just have to figure out what are the unintended consequences, or what are some of the issues around this data. Does that make sense? Great question. Tell your
Final
mom
question.
we're very proud.
Final question for Dr.
Yeah, Keena, one question. Since you provided the data, as you said, for US News and World Report and QS, right? So what is it that is preventing LSU from becoming the top 20 public universities in the nation when universities like UGA and so on are becoming? What is it that is lacking?
So this can be a 2-hour conversation. However, US News and World Report, we also have to think, so they have measures that we have to think about. Danny was on the team, Beck was on the team, where about 2 or 3 years ago, about 2 years ago, we kind of looked at it to figure out what were the problems, right? What, it's graduation rate, their metrics on peer assessment. I'm sure you all have heard of all the different metrics they use, retention, et cetera. So now, me as a psychometrician, they have a formula in terms of how they score you based on that. So I was able to, with 99% accuracy myself, debunk the formula, right? And I put all our inputs in, and then I started projecting what we would get in the next year if we were to move these different levers. And it was wonderful. I was probably one of the most exciting days of my life when I found out it was 99% accurate. The provost was like, you can't get any better than that. About 3 weeks later, I spent 3 months on this problem. 3 weeks later, you all can feel my pain. US News and World Report comes out and says, we've blown up the formula and we've changed it significantly. I mean, all the work that we had done, it wasn't in vain. But the fact of the matter is, I was like, now we can accurately predict, we can figure out where we are beforehand, we've got it down pat. Now they blew it up and we've got to start from scratch. And basically that told me one thing, it just depends on who the chief data officer is and what he feels like should be moved around and where there are issues. And Columbia had been cheating. There were several places that had been cheating and found out. So they were making a lot of changes. So in essence, you have to decide on what you're going to do, right? People do utilize US News and World Report. So there's part of the game you want to play. A lot of the things that they're looking at are in line with everything that we talk about we want to happen here. So I think as you move up, what I will say, and hasn't been expressed very much, but it's one of the biggest things comebacks we've ever made, which is our peer assessment score went up 0.1 points. And for other universities that spent millions of dollars to do this in a 1-year period, in a 2-year span, we went up. This year, our peer assessment score went up to 3.0. I'm sure everybody's like, who cares, it's 3.0. Only 4 universities in the country did this. This is huge. People spend millions of dollars for companies to come in and really help boost their peer assessment. Grassroots wise, we were able to do that with doing good work from the faculty, being recognized. It's all about how our peers see us, and we made significant change over a 2-year period. So I think it's exciting. It's almost like garbage in. You take the meat and throw away the bones, and you try to figure out how you can leverage it and use it to make things better, right? But you also say, we still have a job and a mission and vision here at the university, and we're bound by certain budgetary constraints, so that we have to continue moving forward. We're whatever we are now, we're not a UGA top 20. I remember Florida, what they did is they hired significant 1 year, I think within a 2-year period, they said the way that they boost their rankings, they hired hundreds of faculty, which is great, right? So they had support for that, and they were able to do that, and their rankings shot up. Right. So there are ways to kind of game the system that people have found. And, unless you have the resources and things like that to do it, it's really kind of moving those metrics that everybody's concerned about anyways, which is a good thing. So,
Well, thank you, Vice President Arbuthnot.
Thank you.
And having been there, I can say the symposium was a great event, and it was really fascinating to see the interesting work that the team is doing. So I appreciated the invitation. Thank you. And then Vice President comment from Student Advocacy and Accountability. Student Affairs update key trends and priorities for this semester.
Good afternoon. Is anybody happy that it feels really good outside now? As I walked over here, I spent a few minutes, more than I would have, outside in the Free Speech Alley to really just take in the student experience. You know, there are tables set up, people are selling things, everybody has a cause, people are dancing, and it really just reminds me of how fortunate I am to be in this space to serve this institution and to really be charged with thinking about the student experience and how we can continue to make it better. So I just wanted to mention that piece. In Student Affairs, we talk about how students have roughly 153 hours per week they spend outside the classroom. And we think about how we can help students through leadership opportunities, through student involvement, through focusing on their health and well-being, how we can help students to be successful and also leverage these hours in order to be successful in the classroom. It's all about student success. It's all about retention, first to second year, second to third, and ultimately graduation. A few things I'm excited about before I tell you about a few trends that we are seeing this academic year. First is Tailored Tiger. So when we talk about access and how we think about career readiness and career success, the Tailored Tiger was an initiative started a few years ago, and it's really a career closet. We were noticing that students don't necessarily have the appropriate attire to engage in different ways in their career development. And so we developed a Tailored Tiger career closet. It's located on the 3rd floor of the Student Union. We had our grand opening, the provost came, we cut the ribbon, we did those fun things. It was my first time cutting the ribbon, so it was pretty cool. I just want to share that up until this point, we have 181 students have visited the clothing closet, which is fantastic. We have 181 students who now feel more comfortable going to a career fair or going to an interview because they feel like they have the appropriate attire to look how they feel and to look how their credentials tell that they are. We've given out 494 items of clothing, which is fantastic. And I mention this because, again, we're always thinking about access and how we can help our students, not only here, but also prepare to be successful after they leave the institution. Ready to Roar. This is another initiative around career readiness. And when we think about all the different opportunities that students have to work on campus, to be engaged in research, to work in the different offices around our campus, Ready to Roar is an initiative that is really focusing on helping students to understand the different proficiencies that they pick up while doing the work that they do. And so we had a soft launch in the spring. We've had a bigger launch, and we're really trying to get out to different academic departments, different departments within enrollment management, student affairs, and really try to focus and have conversations with individuals who employ student workers to say, hey, we know they're picking up phenomenal skill sets. We know that they're picking up communication, self-awareness, writing skills, and different things of those proficiencies. How can we help students to understand this in a better way to ultimately help them to feel more comfortable explaining and talking about their experience? So I'm excited about those two things this academic year and how we can continue to help students to be successful in those ways. A few trends and a few things that we're thinking about within student affairs that we've noticed this academic year. First one is this idea of engagement, and VP Barrow talked about engagement, and he mentioned Welcome Week, and it's a phenomenal week. And I could tell during that week that our students were going to be engaged. We had record participation at the different events. I really appreciate the partnership that we do with enrollment management and student success around making sure that our students, they come in and they understand what it means to be a member of this community. And so we see engagement as being something that is trending high, not only trending high over the last couple of years, but also trending high when we think about pre-COVID numbers in different ways. And I want to share a little bit of information with you. These top two graphs, this comes from Handshake. Handshake is our platform that we encourage all students to sign up with. It's a way that students can apply for jobs on campus. Ultimately, students can also apply for internships and then jobs when they leave the institution. I know it might be difficult to see, but what I wanted to point out to you on your left side This is the monthly activity of users over time. And for this year, 2024, we are trending significantly higher. It would be, I don't have a, does this have a point? No. Pointer? Yeah. Thank you. So this is where we are at this point for this academic year. So trending significantly higher when we talk about the monthly activity of users. And this is important because, again, students getting into Handshake, they're getting more access to understand what job opportunities are out there, not only for LSU, but also internships and other things. On the other side, we have a graph that looks at student activation by the current school year. So we have the first year, second year, junior year, and you see the activation rates. The lighter green would be the activated without the complete profile, and then the green would be the complete profile. And so we see that students are getting engaged. We're trying to push up completing the entire profile. Students can still engage without completing the profile, but it helps them to have all that information. I also wanted to include our percentage of student body that is a member of a student organization is up to 56%. We've spent the last few years trying to better understand how we can get good data around this, how we can better understand how can we assess and understand what students are joining organizations. The reason why this is important, we think about this idea of sense of belonging. If they can develop that sense of belonging, they can find their people, they're more likely to want to stay, they're more likely to gain additional skill sets. We look at RSO engagement at 68%. This would be the percentage of RSOs actively engaged with campus life, staff, and training and development opportunities. So it's not just about students being involved, it's also about what skill sets are they picking up from their membership in different organizations. And then we have the largest fraternity and sorority community in LSU history, with growth in all three of our governing councils. So 2 out of 3 of our governing councils. And so we see engagement as being really good right now. Another trend is around well-being. And this is something that, we have a vice president, assistant vice president for student health and well-being, and we're constantly thinking about how are we tending to and really trying to cater to the well-being of our students. And a few numbers that I wanted to share. To this point, we've had 969 care cases. That number in parentheses, that would be the previous academic year. So this goes from the first day of classes until this point about 2 days ago. So we've had 968 for the fall of 2024, that 1,196, that would be the fall of 2023. So we're trending a little bit lower when it comes to these care cases, but what we're seeing is that they're more intense when it comes to the mental health issues, when it comes to students who are a threat to themselves, self-harm and things of that nature. And so we're continuing to see that trend go high, and we're constantly thinking about what we can do and how we can better serve our students in those ways and get them the information they need in order to make sure that we're tending to their health and well-being. I also wanted to mention a part of well-being, we talk about food insecurity a lot within student affairs and how it's important that students get the nourishment that they need in order to be successful. And we've had a record high with 4,793 visits to the food pantry this academic year. I put in parentheses our international students. This is the largest population of students that we see gain access and really take advantage of the access to our food pantry, so that the only thing you need to engage with our food pantry is a student ID. We don't check anything else. So if you're an LSU student, you can come and you can get food up to 3 times per week. We also see higher numbers within our graduate students. And so graduate students and our international students are the primary users of our food pantry, but we're seeing those numbers continue to rise as we think about inflation, as we think about students who just don't necessarily always have the means to buy all the food they need in order to be successful. I also think about well-being. One of the things that I'm excited about that we've opened this academic year is our collegiate recovery space in Coates Hall. So 2 springs ago, we started we have a collegiate recovery coordinator, a person who is here to really help our students in recovery to be successful and help them to navigate the collegiate experience. We have a space, thank you to Academic Affairs for providing us a space where these students can come together, they can be in community, and they can support each other through their journeys of making sure that they stay in recovery. So that also is a piece of that well-being. And then the misconduct, the academic misconduct piece is what I really wanted to share with you. If we look at the academic misconduct, and again, these numbers are from the first day of the academic year to this point, In 2023, that would be the first number. We had 296. To this point this year, we've had 487. That's 487 reports that we receive from faculty, from instructors that in some way address some aspect of academic misconduct on our campus. And so we see those numbers trending significantly higher than they have before. And that's something that we're trying to keep a pulse on. We're trying to think about and talk to, our faculty senate colleagues about what are we doing to address that. And then I wanted to show you the behavior misconduct as well. We see those numbers trending a little bit lower right now as we think about the first day of the academic year to this point, 662 for the fall of 23 with 534 for the fall of 24. So that's what I really wanted to share. I wanted to make sure to give you all an opportunity to ask whatever questions that you have. So I'll open the floor.
Questions for Vice President Keena?
Yes.
Thank you very much for this organized presentation. Is increasing in the number of academic misconduct related to the use of AI in the classroom or not?
We've seen consistently that number has risen every year for about the past 3 years. So that contributes to it.
Okay.
But it's also just we're still dealing with the remnants of students who COVID is still impacted the student population. A lot of this, and we try to address it better with coming up with an informal process for dealing with academic misconduct for lower cases. We see a big jump in our freshmen every year, that first semester freshmen, who just sometimes don't know how to accurately cite their information and things of that nature. So that's a piece, but I would say that AI definitely contributes to that number being higher.
Okay.
And it probably will for the foreseeable. As it continues to morph, we continue to have conversations with our faculty, senate colleagues about what we can do to best support our students. First of all, to support the academic endeavor, support our students, but also support our faculty in thinking about how we can hold students accountable, but also do it in a fair way.
So that they need to have a policy where students can have more liability probably, so that they are not always referred to academic affairs for silly things. I think I noticed last year as I was helping with the Spanish section that we receive a lot of complaints about the use of AI for activities. So, but I also noticed that the students were not understanding really the policy on the syllabi about when or to use or not AI, for example.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. I'm sorry to interrupt, but I totally agree with you. And I know the SAA has tried to work with faculty senate, especially to think about the verbiage and the language and how we can help faculty to communicate with students about, is it possible in this class versus that? How does AI look? Because we know that it looks different in different areas. We know that it looks different across different faculty. And so how do we educate our students in ways to make sure that they're following the policy within their academic setting in order to ultimately be successful?
Yeah. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
This is more of a comment to what Carmela just said. I just want to thank Brendan for allowing us to collaborate with SAA. We formed a committee, executive committee, formed a collaborative committee with SAA. Just a couple of weeks ago, we met, and we are tracking students and their academic misconducts. And we're gonna, at the end of next semester, we will be studying the data, and hopefully we will report back also to the faculty what kinds of I don't know, cases, offenses, I don't know what's the right term.
Yeah, you're right.
It's a crime.
I know. Exactly.
And how to handle them, because I think it's pretty commonly known in SAA, but probably not for the faculty. But you can probably guess that most of these plagiarisms are highest in their freshman year, and probably because students just don't have a sense of belonging. And I don't know, but we will report back. And again, thank you, Brendan, for that collaboration. And I hope it will go in the right direction, and we will be able to really get to the heart of the issue.
Great. And I appreciate you for mentioning that. And I'll take a moment to kind of add on to that.
Sure.
SAA had an idea about 1.5 years ago. How can we continue to meet the needs of our students as it relates to academic misconduct cases, also hold them accountable, also make an educational experience, also support the academic endeavor. But how can we continue as students morph and as AI is coming into the picture? How can we just continue to think about this in different ways? And I share that piece because I think this was a great example of collaboration. We knew within student affairs, within SAA, we're not going to make any changes to the academic piece without first coming to Faculty Senate. And so that's something that, we tried to work hand in hand with Faculty Senate to say, hey, is this okay? Because we knew that if it absolutely was a no-go, then we needed to go back and think about something different. We want to support, we're here to support you all in your success. And so I think that we landed in a good place. We're going to continue to track that data, and we'll make adjustments as necessary in order to continue to meet the needs of the student population. So thank you for that.
We have time for one more question, if there are any remaining questions. All right, no questions. Thank you, Vice President.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, and I don't want to turn it into a mutual admiration society, but I do appreciate the cooperation of Vice President Common and all the team members that he has over there in student affairs. It's been a great working relationship, particularly as we deal with the evolution of technology and what that means for education. So it's been a great partnership, and we look forward to continuing the collaboration. That brings us to the end of our agenda for today. Our next meeting is going to be on January 22nd, 2025, same time, same location. Happy holidays to you, your families and colleagues. Is there a motion to adjourn? Not everybody wants, please. All right, motion, is there a second? Thank you. All those in favor, please say aye. All right, thank you. Thank you, everybody. Have a great afternoon.